Hello, and welcome to Mimi Leaks. Today, we're diving into the civil lawsuit filed October 20th, 2021 by Jane Doe in the United States District Court, Southern District of New York. It names Shawn Combs, aka Diddy, and his business entities as defendants, and on December 8th, 2024, the complaint was amended to include Shawn Carter, known as Jay-Z. Since its filing, Carter has written a public, strongly worded denial. Carter and his attorneys have publicly accused Jane Doe and her attorney, Tony Busby, of a shakedown. They have also filed a motion requesting Jane Doe be named. On December 13th, Spiro, Jay-Z's attorney, corresponded to the court with their intention to file an immediate motion to strike the amended complaint. They attached to this correspondence a news article that discusses inconsistencies in the plaintiff's allegations, both expressed by her father and by the plaintiff herself, stating that she may have made a mistake or mistaken in both identification and key details. So please keep this in mind, that this complaint, like any, is an outline of the plaintiff's claims against the defendant. It may be the case that not only is it stricken, but that Carter seeks some form of legal remedy as a result of the following allegations. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and before we proceed, I want to issue a trigger warning. The content of this complaint includes explicit details and descriptions of SA and other traumatic events. Also, I will redact words as to respect YouTube's conditions as I read through the document. Now let's begin. From the United States District Court, Southern District of New York. Jane Doe, plaintiff versus the following defendants: Shawn Combs, Bad Boy Books Holdings, Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Productions Holdings, Bad Boy Productions, Bad Boy Records, CE Opco, Daddy's House Recording, Individual Does 1 through 10, Organizational Does 1 through 10, and Shawn Carter, defendants. First amended complaint and demand for jury trial. Plaintiff Jane Doe, plaintiff by and through her attorneys, the Busby Law Firm, for her complaint alleges as follows. Introduction. Defendant Shawn Combs, aka P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Diddy, PD, and Love, along with his longtime friend and collaborator, Shawn Carter, aka Jay-Z, D'd and R'd a 13-year-old girl at an after-party following the 2000 VMAs. Another celebrity stood by and watched as Combs and Carter took turns assaulting the minor. Many others were present at the party and did nothing to stop the assault. Combs has been allowed for years to conduct himself in this manner without any consequences. He believes he's above the law. He is not. His close friend, Shawn Carter, has been with Combs during many such instances described herein. Both perpetrators must face justice. For decades, defendant Combs abused, molested, assaulted, threatened, and coerced women, minors, and others for gratification, to assert dominance, and to conceal his abhorrent conduct. He accomplished these acts by and through a criminal enterprise built on his success as a rapper, record producer, and record executive. Combs is one of the wealthiest musical artists in the world. Behind the facade of being a 3-time Grammy Award winner, discovering, developing multiple musical artists, famous musical artists, and ranking on the Forbes list of the highest paid entertainers in the world, there existed something sinister. A dark underbelly of crime, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, bribery, and selling oneself for money. Combs is a menace to society, women, and children. While his wealth has kept him above consequences for years, Combs now faces the awesome power of the American judicial system and ultimately a jury of his peers who will be asked to punish him for his deplorable conduct described herein. Combs's businesses. Combs's business enterprise is central to the pervasive acts of SA and abuse committed by him during the last decades. Combs operated his business, headquartered at various times in Manhattan and Los Angeles, under a variety of U.S.-based corporate entities, including those mentioned before. Corporate entities in the Combs business portfolio included record labels, a recording studio, an apparel line, an alcoholic spirits promoting business, a marketing agency, talent discovery, a network, television, and media company. On the surface, each of these businesses served as a legitimate purpose related to entertainment, music, and other subjects. But in reality, Combs, by and through himself, and his agents, employees, and contractors used these businesses to abuse, threaten, and coerce hundreds of individuals through a quid pro quo in those schemes, as well as take advantage of individuals with impunity, thinking the victims would never have any recourse. Combs and his agents, employees, and contractors through these Combs businesses would tell victims, "This is what it takes to be famous," or "What are you willing to do to become a star?" and "Perform this act or else," in exchange for the victim performing non-consensual acts for the gratification of Combs and his cohort. Members and associates of the Combs business engaged in and or attempted to engage in, among other activities, trafficking, forced labor, interstate transportation for the purposes of selling one's body, coercion and enticement to engage in selling one's body, narcotic offenses, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. Combs business constituted an ongoing organization whose members functioned as a continuing unit for a common purpose of achieving the objectives of Combs. Combs's pervasive history of SA and violence. For years, Combs and his businesses engaged in a persistent, pervasive pattern of abuse towards women, men, and minors. This abuse at times was verbal, emotional, physical, and S-related. As patterns and a part of his abuse, Combs manipulated both men and women to participate in highly orchestrated performances of S activity with both commercial S workers and unsuspecting partygoers. Combs ensured participation from these individuals by, among other things, obtaining and distributing narcotics to them, with or without their knowledge, controlling their careers, leveraging his financial support, and threatening to cut off the same, and using intimidation, violence, and illicit substances. Combs particularly fancied the use of the popular substance rohypnol, or GHB, to commit heinous non-consensual acts of S violence and R onto countless victims. Combs would often secretly use the substance in an alcoholic beverage served at his parties. Partygoers were forced to consume the alcoholic beverage containing GHB either prior to or entering or while at Combs's party. There were also allegations of Combs dousing victims in lotions or similar body oils also laced with GHB so that the substance would be absorbed through the victim's skin and make it easier to assault him or her. Further, it is well known that Combs had a practice of lacing water bottles with other substances, such as Xanax, and distributing them at parties. Combs's recurrent and pervasive physical abuse took place for multiple decades. His tendencies of violence and SA were well known amongst his colleagues, employees, agents, and businesses. On numerous occasions, from at least in or about 1996, and continuing for years, Combs assaulted women and men by striking, punching, dragging, throwing objects at, and kicking them. Combs also assaulted children, both physically and S-related. In 1996, Combs was found guilty of criminal mischief for threatening a photographer from the New York Post with a gun. In 1999, He was arrested and charged with second-degree assault and criminal mischief in connection with assaulting a record executive. Combs was arrested again the same year for his involvement in a shooting at a club in New York. Another instance of violence occurred at a LA hotel in or about March 2016, when he was captured on video and later publicly reported, where Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a woman as she attempted to leave his hotel room. When security staff intervened, Combs attempted to bribe the staff member to ensure silence. In the past year, numerous civil complaints have been filed by plaintiffs who have alleged that they have been abused by Combs between 1991 and 2009. In November 2023, 3 lawsuits were filed against Combs under the New York Adult Survivors Act. Cassie Ventura, an artist assigned to Bad Boy, sued Combs in New York for and physical abuse. She alleged Combs facilitated these acts by and through supplying Ms. Ventura with copious amounts of substances and urging her to take them beginning in 2006. Joy Dickerson-Neal also sued Combs in New York, alleging Combs provided substances to her without her knowledge, SA'd her, and secretly recorded the assault in 1991. Liza Gardner, whom Combs met at an event hosted by a record label affiliated with Bad Boy, sued him for R-ing her and a friend in 1990 or 91 when she was only 16. In December 2023, an anonymous plaintiff sued Combs in New York for D and gang R-ing her in 2003 when she was only 17 years old. This victim alleged that employees and business associates of Combs, through their affiliation with Bad Boy Enterprise, lured her to Combs' home, where Combs then R'd her. In February 2024, Rodney Lil Rod Jones, one of Combs' former producers, sued him for forcing him to engage in unwanted acts and trafficking, among other allegations. Mr. Jones alleged that Combs regularly D'd others, including minors, by giving them ecstasy, MDMA, and other DR drugs. Mr. Jones alleged that Combs, in fact, provided substances to him, as well as in order to commit acts of SA. In May 2024, former model Crystal McKinney and April Lampros sued Combs. Ms. McKinney alleged that Combs D'd and SA'd her at his recording studio in 2003. Mimicking what has now been known as a pattern, Combs promised Ms. McKinney to help her with her modeling career in exchange for engaging in conduct with him. Ms. Lampros, an intern at Arista Records, which was an owner of Bad Boy, also sued Combs in May 2024 in New York County Supreme Court for R-ing her on multiple occasions, secretly filming these acts, and showing the recordings to multiple people. Ms. Lampros also alleges that Combs ordered her to take substances on one occasion before he R'd her. In July 2024, former adult film star Adria English, who was employed by Combs as an entertainer at his infamous white parties that brought together the biggest names in music and entertainment industries, sued Combs in the SDNY for trafficking, alleging that he required her to consume drinks laced with substances and secretly recording the acts. In September 2024, singer and songwriter Dawn Angelique Richard also sued Combs. Richard was employed by Combs as part of his girl group Danity Kane, formed by Combs, and later as a key member of Combs' band Diddy, Dirty Money. She sued Combs in New York for SA, false imprisonment, and for subjecting her to hostile working conditions due to her gender, including degrading comments and threats. Ms. Richard has alleged that Combs regularly supplied her and others, with copious amounts of substances and alcohol and subjected them to acts while they were sedated and or unconscious due to the substances and alcohol. In September 2024, a federal grand jury in Manhattan indicted Combs and charged him with trafficking, racketeering, and the creation of a criminal enterprise in which he abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. The indictment explains that Combs abused women and minors and enabled and conspired can't read today. In September 2024, a federal grand jury in Manhattan indicted Combs and charged him with trafficking, racketeering, and the creation of a criminal enterprise in which he abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. The indictment explains that Combs' abuse of women and minors was enabled and conspired by, quote, the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates attempted to engage in, among other crimes, trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice, unquote. Combs' long history of violence against women unequivocally establishes that his actions are motivated by gender, both men and women. Combs has a profound contempt for women and a desire to dominate both minors and other men. His conduct shows a long-standing practice of denigrating, defeating, and attempting to humiliate men, women, and children. His practices and desires are different for men, women, and children, but his actions are unequivocally motivated by the victim's particular gender and age. Plaintiff's allegations herein substantially mirror Combs' prior conduct as established through criminal indictments and other lawsuits. Through this case, plaintiff seeks a full measure of justice from a man who thought his power, money, and influence rendered him untouchable. Plaintiff joins many victims by filing this complaint in hopes their dream and their common voice makes it impossible for Combs to assault another person ever again. Defendant Carter is, like Combs, a wildly successful rapper and businessman. Carter and Combs have a long history together. Carter met and began collaborating musically with Combs in the 90s. Combs and Carter rose together to the very top of the hip-hop industry in terms of fame and influence by the end of that decade. Combs and Carter were not simply occasional collaborators in the music industry. The two men developed a close friendship that has been well documented from the late 1990s to the present. Together, they attended countless music industry events for each other's business ventures, parties, and after-parties. Indeed, the two are apparently so close that Combs stated in 2023 that Carter is the only person, other than Combs' mother, who is allowed to call him by his legal first name of Shawn. In 2000, near the height of their power, fame, and influence, Combs and Carter attended the 2000 VMAs in New York City. Afterwards, Combs hosted an after-party for many of the famous celebrities in the music and entertainment industries, including Carter, which is where the events alleged in this complaint occurred. Parties, which I will condense. Plaintiff Jane Doe is a female who resides in Alabama. Defendant Shawn Combs is a male who resides in New York City through incarceration in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The suit alleges Combs, as owner and/or controller, used his brands and businesses listed as named defendants to avoid liability in connection with his criminal activities, and they are discussed in the following paragraphs. Defendant Daddy's House is a world-renowned recording studio and is owned and operated alongside Bad Boy Records. Defendant CE Opco, CE being Combs Enterprises, currently does business as Combs Global and oversees Bad Boy and Combs' other business ventures in the music, fashion, fragrance, beverage, marketing, film, television, and media industries. Over the last decades, Combs has established the following entities under the brand Bad Boy. Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Bad Boy Production Holdings, Bad Boy Books Holdings, Bad Boy Records, and Bad Boy Entertainment, and finally, Bad Boy Productions. Organizational does and individual does are listed to protect their interest in naming any entities discovered in the future on the amended complaint. Defendant Jay-Z, also known as Shawn Carter, was identified as Celebrity A in the original lawsuit. According to this amended lawsuit, upon receiving a letter from the plaintiff's counsel proposing mediation, Carter filed a frivolous lawsuit and conspired to harass, bully, intimidate the plaintiff's associates and attorneys in an effort to silence the plaintiff. Instead, this has resulted in the plaintiff choosing to name Carter on this amended complaint. Jurisdiction and venue. To summarize, because this case exceeds $75,000, took place in New York with defendants domiciled and practicing business in New York, this court has jurisdiction, and because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claims occurred in this district, venue is proper. A jury demand is demanded on plaintiff's rights in this action. Jurisdiction and venue, which I'm going to condense a little bit. This court has subject matter jurisdiction because this case is between citizens of different states and exceeds $75,000. It has personal jurisdiction because it took place in New York. Defendants are domiciled in New York and or regularly transact business in New York. Venue is proper because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claim occurred in this district. Jury demand. Plaintiff hereby demands a trial by jury on her claims in this action. Factual allegations. On or around September 7, 2000, plaintiff, then 13 years old, had a friend drive and drop her off near Radio City Music Hall in New York City so she could try to attend the VMAs. Attending the VMAs was on the plaintiff's bucket list, and she believed she could gain entry. Plaintiff arrived at the venue and saw large crowds gathering as artists and entertainers began arriving. Plaintiff was very excited. As the event began, much of the crowd had moved inside, but plaintiff, without a ticket, remained outside with others and watched the VMAs on a jumbotron. Determined to get into the VMAs or an after-party, she approached several limousine drivers parked nearby and attempted to talk her way into either. One of the limousine drivers she spoke with claimed to work for defendant Combs. The driver told her that Combs liked younger girls and she would fit right in with what Diddy was looking for. And while not allowing her into the awards, the driver invited her to an after-party. The driver stated that he had to drive Combs and others to the after-party first, but instructed plaintiff to return to his location after the event and that he could pick her up and take her to the after-party. Later that evening, plaintiff excitedly returned to the same location and waited for what seemed to her to be a long time. The driver eventually returned and drove her to what he described as the after-party. After approximately 20 minutes, plaintiff arrived at what she believed to be a large white residence with a gated U-shaped driveway. Once inside, two men asked the plaintiff to sign a contract or a document, which plaintiff did not read, but which she now believes to have been a non-disclosure agreement. She was told that she could not discuss what happened at the party. She gave the men her name and signed the form, but did not receive a copy. Inside the building, plaintiff recognized many celebrities as she entered what appeared to be a large living room or foyer containing a large crowd. Plaintiff attempted to mingle in the crowd and talked to several of the celebrities that she recognized and whom she wanted to see at the VMAs. Waitstaff circulated through the room carrying trays of drinks, and loud music played through the venue. Plaintiff observed widespread substance use. After attempting to talk to numerous celebrities, plaintiff accepted a drink from one of the waitresses circling in the crowd. The drink was reddish yellow, and it tasted like orange juice, cranberry juice, or something bitter. After drinking just a portion of that drink, plaintiff began to feel woozy and lightheaded, making her need to lie down. A photograph of the actual exemplary container used by Combs and/or his agents or employees to insert GHB into alcoholic drinks is seen below. Looking for a place to rest, plaintiff walked down what appeared to be a hallway containing several rooms off of it. She entered what appeared to be an empty room so that she could lie down for a moment. She did not lock the door. This room contained only a large bed with no furniture of any kind, television, or other furnishings. Soon after, Combs entered the room, along with defendant Carter and a female celebrity, Celebrity B. Plaintiff immediately recognized all three celebrities. Combs aggressively approached the plaintiff with a crazed look in his eyes, grabbed her and said, "You are ready to party." Combs then threw plaintiff toward a wall, causing the plaintiff to fall. She got up and stumbled, at which point Combs grabbed her again and threw her on the bed. At that point, Carter began removing her clothes as she grew more and more disoriented. Plaintiff was held down by Carter as he forced himself upon her and essayed her, while Combs and Celebrity B watched. After Carter finished, he stepped back to the wall. Combs then stepped forward and arred the plaintiff while Carter and Celebrity B watched. Combs then knocked plaintiff down and attempted to force plaintiff to perform an oral act on him. She fought back, standing up quickly and punching out at the same time, hitting Combs in the neck. Taken aback, Combs stopped his attempt. When Combs backed away in surprise, plaintiff grabbed her clothes and shoes and ran out of the bedroom, holding her dress in front of her like a towel. She ran around the residence until she found the front door and was able to leave the party. Although there were other guests still at the party, no one appeared to take notice of plaintiff's distress or attempted to help her. Once outside, plaintiff put her clothes back on and left the scene in the dark. Plaintiff attempted to retrace the route taken by the limo driver. She kept running until she reached a gas station that she noticed on the way to the party. A female clerk noticed her in distress and allowed her to use the phone. Plaintiff called her father, admitted that she had lied about her whereabouts, and asked him to pick her up. Plaintiff's father arrived to pick her up shortly before dawn. After the assault, plaintiff fell into a deep depression, which continues to affect every facet of her life. Plaintiff suffers from PTSD and a seizure disorder caused by the stress and trauma. Plaintiff has difficulty maintaining normal relationships and lives largely withdrawn from society. First cause of action, which I will summarize. All individuals violated the New York City Victims of Gender-Motivated Violence Protection Act by assaulting the plaintiff, a minor female, without consent and by force. Organizational defendants enabled and conspired in the assault and have a long history of such conduct. This is discussed in paragraphs 62 through 71. Wherefore, plaintiff respectfully requests that judgment be entered against the defendant as follows: awarding attorney's fees and costs, compensatory damages for physical injuries, emotional distress, psychological harm, family and social disruption, and other harm, and awarding punitive damages, all in an amount to be determined at trial, and pre- and post-judgment interest on those damages. And that is Jane Doe's complaint. We'll see what the future holds for it and whether it's dismissed or if it will proceed. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification button to stay up to date on any of our releases. Thanks so much again, and be safe.